Hiya, family. My name is Donna. A lot of you may know me as the lady who says, young man, to our brother. This is part 3 of the Science and Fine Art of Fasting by Herbert M Shelton. It was written originally 91 years ago, and he did update it some, so there's some later after 1934, like some statistics in the first chapter. I think it was from 1949, I believe. But I'm just going to share this into our group, and just give me a second so that I can share this into our group. And hold on one second, family. Yeah, this is part 3 of Herbert M Shelton, The Science and Fine Art of Fasting. And oh, here we go. This was a quick one. Okay, group. Yeah, yesterday was quite interesting. I guess I never really realized how much, it's actually needed. Fasting for plants and animals, and how just everything goes back the way it's supposed to, and how your body can heal, and it's just so amazing. And just give me a second, family. Okay, I shared it in our group. There we go. Sorry about that. Here we go. Sorry, family. Okay, this is the part 3, The Science and Fine Art of Fasting. And so we're on long fasts in man. And just give me a second. Yeah, come on. I'm not good at this. Okay. Well, actually, I'm not going to say I'm not good at this because our words are powerful, right? I'm getting better. Okay, long fasts in man. In the preceding chapter, it was shown that animals may go without food for prolonged periods without damage to their bodies or to individual organs. The objection is often raised that while some animals may do this, many cannot. For there are still those who would place man outside of the uniformities of nature and make him an exception. Nevertheless, the facts prove that man may go for long periods without food, not alone without injury to himself, but with positive benefits. Old mistakes are repeated, and after year in reference work, so the public is at all times misinformed. The New Standard Encyclopedia 1931 says, generally, death occurs after 8 days of deprivation of food. This encyclopedia mentions the 15 men survivors of the frigate Medusa 1876 who were 13 days on an open raft without food, and also a case instanced by Bernard, which was sustained on water alone for 63 days. Suchi's 40 days fast is also mentioned. No mention is made of fasting as a hygienic or remedial measure, and not a single scientific and up-to-date book on fasting is included in the bibliography. Until the 1921 revisions of that work were made, the Encyclopedia Britannica and similar works carried articles on inanition and fasting, stating over the signatures of eminent medical authorities that from 10 to 14 days marked the extreme limit to which the human body could endure without food. Thousands of fasts of much longer duration, even up to 70 and 90 days, had been recorded, but the medical profession and scientists gave no attention to them The authorities gave up their false notion only after the McSweeney hunger strike forced them to do so. That common sense may still be arrayed against the demonstrated facts of experiment and experience, and that men who pose as scientists may deny what may be known about the body because it does not seem to them to harmonize with what they think they know. Think they now know about the body is amazing proof that there have been ignorant bigots, and that they are not all dead. Sinclair's Sinclair says he talked with a well-known and successful physician who refused point blank to believe that a human being could live for more than 5 days without any sort of nutriment. There was no use talking to him about it. It was a physiological impossibility. He refused to investigate the evidence offered that it could be done. Bigotry we have with us always. Men who form their opinions in advance of investigation and who then refuse to investigate lest they have their own opinions swept away are all too common. We know that, don't we, family? The American People's Encyclopedia says that the survival time of acute starvation, complete abstinence from all food save water, is 40 days in man. It says that in individual men, the survival time, as determined in laboratory starvation experiments, range from 17 to 76 days. It is not likely that any such laboratory experiments have ever been made. One thing we may be certain of, namely the survival times given are not accurate. A baby may survive more than 17 days of fasting. Numerous fasters have not only survived but benefit by fast lasting longer than 76 days. While man is apparently not capable of fasting for such long periods as are many of the lower animals, many long fasts have been recorded in man. Modern science is said to be very skeptical of these reported long fasts, but modern science, despite its proud boasting of its experimental methods and its readiness to investigate, is not willing to investigate fasting. If any of the nitwits who are called scientists really desire to observe and study long fast at first hand, it may be easily arranged. There is no excuse for either doubt or incredulity, while knowledge may be had. In this connection, it should be noted that the so-called authorities look well upon the reported fast of 65 days underwent by Marion Crabtree of Savannah, Illinois in 1911 at the age of 101. Wow, 65 days and she was 101. Wow. Because they say, oh, people need much less. Because they say old people need much less energy than younger ones. Accordingly, they say old people would be the best of all people to take long fast. Long fasts have been reported that were never undergone, and that on their very faces were frauds. There is a famous case of Mary J. Francher of Brooklyn, New York. She undertook a fast in 1866. Sorry, family. There we go. Her fast is reported to have lasted for 13 years. Her fast is reported to have lasted for 13 years. Under test conditions, all such fasts have failed. In 1807 and more, the Staffordshire Wonder was reported to have gone without food for more than 2 years. Under test conditions, Anne gave up her fast after 9 days of real fasting. Then she confessed that during her long fast, she had been supplied all the time with smuggled food. Yeah, I was going to say. You know what I mean? Yeah, but at least she admitted it. Miss Maria de Consecas, a young girl of about 17 years of age of Mendez, Brazil, fasted some years ago for the cure of epilepsy. You know what? Maybe we better do it this way. Sorry, family. For epilepsy. At the time her fast was reported in the New York Journal, she was said to have fasted for 6 months, greatly puzzling her physicians. Her fast continued for some time thereafter. After 6 months without food, a medical examination showed pulse, temperature, and respiration normal, complete vacuity of the bowels, all organs perfect, repugnance to all kinds of food. At one time previous to this, she fasted 2 months. I personally have some doubts about this case. The fact that fakers have pretended to fast for such incredibly long times and have been revealed as frauds, however, is not evidence that real fasting for prolonged periods has not been done. A brief mention of few fasts in men and women will help to dispel the lingering doubts about the ability of man to go without food for long periods of time. Muni Sri Mishreliji, a member of the Jain religious sect, underwent a fast which lasted 132 days to impress upon his co-religionists the need for unity. Although this fast was not carefully watched, there seems to be no doubt that the man actually fasted this long. In 1828, the Parisian medical journals reported the case of a young girl who had typhoid fever and who took no food for 110 days. Robert de Malone, founder of the Cistercian Brotherhood, being overcome with grief upon hearing of the death of a female friend, decided to follow her into the henceforth. His religion forbade direct suicide, so he retired to the mountain lodge of a relative and abstained from food, hoping that one of his frequent fainting fits would result in death. After 70 days without food, he began to suspect the miraculous interposition of Providence, reconsidered his resolution, and resumed eating. He began taking his food in half-ounce installments and soon recovered from his great emaciation. He led an active life for the next 14 years, supervising an ever-increasing number of scattered monasteries. Augusta Kerner of Ingolstadt, a trance faster, survived in a semi-conscious condition nearly a quarter of a year without food. Dr. Dewey tells 2 children of about 4 years, one of them his patient, whose stomachs were destroyed by drinking a solution of caustic potash. The patient of Dr. Dewey was a delicate boy of spare make. It required 75 days for the boy to exhaust its reserves, and there seemed to be only a skin and skeleton when the last breath was drawn. Dr. Dewey tells us that not one light drink of water was retained during life, and yet the mind was clear up to even the last half hour. The other child, with a larger supply of reserves, lived 3 months. Dr. Hazard tells us, and emaciated patient who had been bedridden for years because of chronic functional disease, the muscles being greatly wasted from lack of use, who fasted a total of 118 days out of a period of 140 days with practically complete recovery of health as a result. Mr. McFadden had one man to fast for 90 days in his institution. While the McSweeney hunger strike was in progress, I heard Dr. Lindar tell of one man who fasted 70 days in his institution. The longest fast I have ever personally conducted up to the present writing was one of 68 days long. Oh, hold on one second, family. I'm in my store and I have a customer. I'll just be a minute. I'm sorry. I'll just be a minute. I'll just be a minute, family. I'll be right back. If somebody comes in, please let them know I'll be right back. Thank you, family. Okay, family, I'm back. Sorry about that, family. But I'm here. But you see how slow it is. So when I say my business is slow, you see, I sold 2 bags of chips for $1.98. Okay. The longest fast I have ever personally conducted up to the present writing was one of 68 days. Long fasts in men and women have been numerous. Literally thousands of them have gone beyond 40 days, some of them going beyond 100 days. The hunger strike of McSweeney, Lord Mayor of Cork, and his companions attracted a goodly amount of attention in the 1920s. 9 of these strikes kept up their fast for 94 days, and then returned to eating and to health and strength. Although these men fasted longer than did McSweeney, they all recuperated rapidly after their return to normal feeding and are reported to have acquired a condition of body superior to that existing before the fast. Body superior to that existing before the fast. By the 47th day of his fast, McSweeney's sister addressed a letter to Cardinal Bourne in which she said, "Those of us who have been watching him through all these weary days have come to the inevitable conclusion that he had been supernaturally sustained in his struggles. Archbishop Mannix of Australia said of him, 'I find him to be a veritable miracle.'" No assumption of divine intervention in such cases is needed to explain them. Yahuwah Elua does not intervene in the cases of fasting worms, hibernating bears, and sexually active seals or salmon. Man is sustained while fasting as these animals are sustained. No miraculous element enters into a long fast. The whole thing may be explained by ordinary natural causes. Strychnine was injected into the veins of strychnine. Sorry, family. Strychnine. Oh man. Strychnine. Strychnine was injected into the veins of McSweeney after food and alcohol were forced upon him. Undoubtedly, he would have lived longer except for this and the nervous tension under which he had kept throughout his strike. One of his colleagues died after 68 days of fasting. Pashutin records the case of a youth, age 18, who took a spoonful of sulfuric acid, after which he was unable to take any food at all for the first week. Took only a little liquid food for the next 4 weeks, and the last 10 weeks no food but water. He reports that there was no albumin or sugar in the urine, and that the man vomited after every attempt to eat. He died at the end of 3 months and 20 days. He records the case of a man, age 42, who died in 4 months and 12 days after drinking some sulfuric acid. Pashutin says of this case, starvation appears complete, but informs us that 2 days before death, the blood contained 4,849,000 red and 7,852 white blood cells per cubic millimeter. Shalom, family. A third case recorded by Pashutin is that of a young girl, age 19, who drank sulfuric acid. He says some liquid food was given for 4 months, but not believed absorbed, as it was eliminated too rapidly, and no chlorides in urine at all. Her dead body was like a skeleton, but mammary glands remained unaffected. Her body temperature began to decrease only during the last 8 days of her life. The girl complained only of thirst, not hunger. Dr. Hazard describes a 60-day fast by a woman aged 38 who suffered with obesity and Bright's disease. The woman recovered health, and though she had been married 20 years, had her first baby 1 year after the fast. She records the case of another woman, age 41, with heart trouble, who fasted 63 days and attended her home duties and visited Dr. Hazard's office daily. In January 1931, the press carried the following account of a woman in Africa who fasted 101 days to reduce her weight. Cape Town, South Africa, January 31st. Authentic reports from Salisbury, South Rhodesia, state that Mrs. A.G. Walker, a noted Rhodesian singer, has been fasting 101 days, during which time she had consumed only 2 or 3 pints of cold and hot water daily. Last October, Mrs. Walker weighed 232 pounds, so she decided to fast. She has lost 63 pounds. She says that she is in perfect health, goes out to parties, and carries on with her public singing. At noon, October 31st, 1932, an English businessman at age 53 of Leeds, London, who refused to permit his name to be published, but who freely discussed his fast with reporters, began a fast under the direction of Mr. John W. Armstrong, who, though not a doctor of any school, has conducted hundreds of fasts and has been very successful in his work. This man received nothing but water until 6:30 p.m., February 8th, 1933, when he was given the juice of 1 orange. Thereafter, he received nothing but water until noon, February 9th. He weighed 191 pounds. At the beginning of the fast, 132. At 191 pounds at the beginning of the fast, 132 pounds at the end of the 50 days of fasting, and 102 pounds at the close of the 101 days without food and loss of 89 pounds. Before going on the fast, the patient was blind, cataracts in both eyes, had no sense of smell, and hardening of the arteries and heart trouble. He had previously been treated with iodine, aspirin, atropine, and other drugs. In August, before commencing the fast, he was unable to tell night from day. Mr. Armstrong reports that by the 56th day of the fast, the cataracts had ceased to exist, and the patient was able to see a little. Thereafter, sight improved gradually until vision again became normal. His sense of smell returned, heart improved, and arteries became better. To newspaper reporters who intervened the patient of the last day of the fast, the patient stated, "I was on my last leg. Nothing did me any good, and I tried fasting as a last resort. I would have tried anything in the hope of getting better again. I started the fast as an experiment for 10 days. Then, as I seemed a little better, I went on from day to day." Come on. Sorry, family. Okay, there we go. I stopped at 101 days, but I could have gone on for another 10 days or so easily if I had wished. He said, "It is easy to fast after the first fortnight, but during the first fortnight, he was forced to use great willpower to resist food." That is so true. In a letter to me dated April 12, 1933, Mr. Armstrong informs me that his patient was able to walk about daily during the whole of the fast and talked rapidly to reporters for 2 hours on the 101st day. The patient was in first-class condition at the time of writing the aforementioned letter. He also reported that up to the 15th day of the fast, there were no visible favorable results except that his skin was more natural in appearance and his arteries were softer. These cases should convince any fair-minded and intelligent person that there is no immediate danger of starvation when a patient is placed upon a fast. If the pathological conditions is remedial, the body will remedy it before any danger of starvation threatens. A.J. Carlson, professor of physiology, University of Chicago, holds that a healthy, well-nourished man can live from 50 to 75 days without food, provided he is not exposed to severe cold, avoids physical work, and maintains emotional calm. His maximum period of 75 days has been surpassed several times. Luciani found that Sushi lost... Oh, come on. Sorry. Luciani found that Suchi lost 19% in weight during his 30-day fast and was otherwise in good health. With the gradually lowering rate of daily loss of weight as the fast progresses, it would probably have required another 50 days for Suchi to have lost the 40% of his weight that some physiologists now consider the limits of safety. Terence McSweeney died after 78 days of fasting on September 14, 1929. Jatindradas, arrested along with 15 others in the Lahore conspiracy, died after 61 days without food, a hunger strike. Assuming that the conditions surrounding the two prisoners were similar and that the emotional struggle in each of these men was not greatly different, the difference in time required for these two men to reach the end was due to the differences in the amount of stored food reserves each carried. Pashutin records the case of a criminal who died on the 64th day of a hunger strike and says of the case, it indicates that in a man there is no less reserves than in animals. The amount of reserves carried by man varies in individual cases, and this is the biggest determining factor in deciding how long one may safely go without food. In more than 30 years of conducting fasts, I have conducted over 25,000 fasts, ranging in duration from 3 days to more than 2 months. I have conducted about 6 fasts that have gone 60 or more days, the longest being 68 days. I have had literally thousands of fasts that have lasted from 40 to 50 and more days. The statement has been made by certain religious authorities in discussions of religious fasts that the ancients could withstand fasting better than the man of today. Such statements have been based on ignorance. There's no reason why there is no reason why the American of today cannot fast as long and with as much benefit as could the ancient Roman, Greek, or Hebrew. There is no physiological, biological, or other evidence that nature favored those ancient people more than she has us. They were not better constructed than we are. I have had many people tell me that the 40 days fast of Yahusha was a miracle. It has also been asserted that the long fast of Moses and Elijah were miracles. Tanner's 2 fasts, one of 40 days and the other of 42 days, are frequently referred to as unusual. Such fasts, of which there have been many, are often set down as historical oddities or eccentricities. They are thought of as isolated and extraordinary facts that have occurred from time to time, but as Tanner may have fasted for 40 days and lived, and Tanner may have secured distinct benefits from his fast, but I could not go without food for even a day, is the statement of many when the fast is under discussion. As Dr. Page puts it in the Nature Cure, it is commonly supported that these are uncommon men. They are uncommon only in possessing a knowledge as to the power of the living organism to withstand abstinence from food, and in having the courage of their opinions. The facts presented in this chapter prove conclusively that nature has no fear of a fast, even a long fast, and that the danger of starvation is very remote. We may enter upon a prolonged fast in most instances with perfect confidence that we are not going to perish of starvation in a few days or even in a few weeks. This of course is not sufficient reason for us to fast. If fasting is not productive of positive benefits, the mere fact that it is not essentially dangerous is not enough to cause us to abstain from food. It shall be the purpose of the succeeding pages of this book not alone to point out that many and varied benefits that may be derived from the judicious fasting, but how to fast to secure maximum benefits. Fasting and ability and survival. From the foregoing parts of this chapter, it will be seen that fasting in man is practiced under about as wide variety of circumstances as among the lower order of life, and for about as many purposes of adjustment and survival. Fasting is a vitally important part of man's life, and until modern times, when we have made a fetish of eating and have developed a ridiculous fear of going without food, even for a day, has played a major role in many of his activities. It is very obvious that the ability to go for prolonged periods without food is as important a means of survival under many conditions in the life of man as it is in the lower animals. It is quite probable that primitive man was forced even more often than modern man to rely upon their ability in order to survive periods of food scarcity and acute diseases. In particular, the ability to go for prolonged periods without eating is very important in man for the reason that he seems to suffer far more with disease than do the lower animals. In this condition, in which, as will be shown later, there is no power to digest and assimilate food, he is forced to rely upon his internal stores. If a man can fast, this is because he, like the lower forms of life, carries within himself a store of reserved food that may be utilized in cases of emergency or when raw materials are not available. Sorry, family. Chapter 4 of Bill of Fare for the Sick. Organisms capitalize the results of the joint work of their several organs and physiological systems in the form of capacities and valuable stored substances. They may learn to use this stored capital, this biological raw material which they have woven into their fabric and built into their flesh and body, in the interest of the whole organism, or in doing useful work, or they may consume it in wasteful expenditure of one kind or another, or may use it under circumstances such as disease or famine, when food cannot be digested or is not to be had. In Persia, there exists a variety of sheep called fat-tailed sheep that has an enormous tail made up of fat and other stored food elements. During seasons of plenty, the sheep stores up large quantities of food in its tail, prized specimens, often developing such heavy tails that their own owners provide them with a small cart which are placed under the tails and fastened to prevent the tails from dragging the ground. When pasturage becomes scarce, the sheep draw upon the food reserves stored in their tails for nutriment. This is a literal example of cutting off the tail of a hungry dog and feeding it to him. The tail of Gila monster, a poisonous reptile lizard of the American Southwest and Mexico, serves as a storehouse of reserve food. A well-fed monster possesses a thick, heavy tail. In barren years, the monster may be found with its tail thinned down almost to the spine. Like the big-tailed sheep found in sheep of Persia, the monster stores food in its tail when food is plentiful and subsists off its tail when food is scarce. They are capable of going for long periods without food, having been kept in cages without food for upwards of 6 weeks. Fasting female birds and fish will absorb the eggs stored in their bodies and utilize them as food. Margulis, experimenting with the new Dermacytum, found that the ripe female withstands starvation best because she actually absorbs and utilizes the large reserves of stored food in the mature eggs, and thereby saves her own organs and tissues from wasting. Heidekamp found in experiments with Triton chrystaceus, a freshwater salmon, that when the female is denied food, the fully developed eggs in her body are the first to be absorbed. These specialized provisions for storing food reserves are analogs to the provisions possessed by the camel for storing water. There are other animals which have other specialized storage for food reserves upon which they may draw in times of food scarcity. Although such specialized structures are not universal in the animal kingdom, nature provides in all animals for the storing of food reserves. The storing of food reserves. Even though there is no specialized structure provided for this purpose, for food is likely to be scarce for one animal as for another. All hibernating animals are equipped with specialized apparatus for storing up food reserves. It has been urged against fasting by man that he is not a hibernating animal. It is quite true the man possesses no specialized food reserves, as does the Russian bear, for example. But he does possess generalized food reserves like all animals. The dog, cat, cow, horse, elephant, etc. are not hibernating animals, yet all of these instinctively refuse food when ill or wounded. Hibernating animals are inactive and have stored food reserves which have been put away for just this period. But there are other animals which go for long periods of time without food and which are vigorously active at the same time. The Alaskan fur seal bull and the salmon are remarkable examples of this. The fact is that all animals, man included, are provided with food reserves which are held in store against period of forced or necessary abstinence from food. There is an economical tendency of the organism to accumulate reserve stores in the body so that under stress or strains or deprivation and want, it shall be able to go on for some time without the ordinary supplies of food. Man or animal, in case of famine, shipwreck, or under other circumstances in which food cannot be secured, would perish forthright except for these generalized food reserves stored in the body. We saw in a previous chapter that each cell and each organ has its own private food reserve. In addition to this, there is a considerable quantity of glycogen stored in the liver. Much surplus protein and other food substances carried in the blood and lymph, several pounds of fat in the body. Even thin people have considerable fat, and much food reserves in the marrow of the bones. In the glands, there is a stored considerable supply of vitamins. It is possible that the body can retain and reuse its vitamins as it can its iron and certain other minerals. Collectively, the above stores constitute a reserve food store that is capable of sustaining the vital organs and their functions through an emergency of considerable length. The ensemble of the body's food reserves is well balanced with respect to the various nutritive elements, salts, vitamins, etc. They are capable of meeting the nutritive needs of the vital tissues for long periods. There is still another source of food which in some animals may amount to several days' supply. In ruminant, the food residue, undigested food, in the intestine tract are usually very large, so large indeed that the variability in fill intestinal tract are usually very large, so large indeed that the variability in fill, is contained in the digestive canal disguises the true body weight and has been a constant cause of uncertainty in determining changes in the body tissue, and amounting often in the case of the steer to 1/5 of the entire body weight, and serve as a source of food for a considerable period after food has been withdrawn, so that the immediate demands upon the body's actual reserves are not great. The reserves of omnivorous animals, although usually plentiful, are quickly exhausted when food is denied. In dogs and man, the alveolar canal is almost immediately exhausted of its food supply, so that the true fasting period is more quickly reached. The whole expense of fasting is thrown upon the food reserves in their bodies almost from the outset. Hibernation differs from ordinary fasting in that the hibernating animal possesses special stores for the period, and in that the metabolic rate is decreased much more in hibernation, thus lessening the need for food. The fasting organism subsists on materials previously stored in its tissues. It would be erroneous to suppose that during a fast, under whatever condition, the process of nutrition are suspended. Only those concerned with the digestion and absorption of raw materials are interrupted. The fasting organism is nourished as truly off its accumulated reserves as if it daily consumed in abundance from the fat of the land. Professor Morgulis said, indeed, that inanition must be regarded as a special, perhaps the simplest form of nutrition. He adds that material for growth and repair of tissue inform the nutrition. He adds that He adds that materials for growth and repair of tissue energy for maintenance and energy for work are supplied under the conditions of inanition from the rich deposit of nutritive substances which every organism contains in its tissues and which constitute the common food when they serve to nourish another organism. Professor Morgulis further says active growth and regeneration are not incompatible with inanition, and the wear and tear, at least in some organs, is so completely repaired as to evade for a long time the effective of a nutritional stringency. Inanition does not preclude the ability for extreme and sustained exertion. Under ordinary circumstances, the generalized food reserves of man and animal are capable of sustaining functional and structural integrity for a considerable time without more food being consumed. Under the most favorable circumstances of quiet, rest, and mental poise, these reserves are capable of holding out much longer. There is a sense in which the utilization of these reserves is analogous to cutting off the tail of a hungry dog and feeding it to him, but the analogy will not go on all fours. These reserves are stored up for just such use, and there are times and conditions when they must be used. Indeed, these are conditions of disease in which it is impossible to make use of food from any other source, conditions in which the body is unable to take the raw materials and make use of them. Not only are these food reserves capable of nourishing the vital tissues of the body for long periods, but the body does not permit any of its vital tissues to be damaged or consumed so long as these stores hold out. It is only after these reserves have been exhausted that nature will permit any of the vital or functioning tissues of the body to be damaged. There is no danger of damage to the vital organs from a prolonged fast. Fear of fasting is unfounded and based on ignorance or misinformation. Abstaining from all food except water until these food reserves are consumed is fasting. Abstaining from food after these food reserves have been consumed is starving. Discussing the death of President Garfield, who lived 80 days after he was shot and was wasted until all that seemed to be left of the great president when he drew his last breath on the night of the 80th day at Elberson was a thin skin covering a skeleton. Dr. Dewey asks, what became of the tissue in this case? Did they evaporate? When food is withdrawn from man or animal, the demand for substance with which to maintain the structures and functions of the vital tissue is thrown upon the reserves of the fasting organism. The fasting organism makes the most of the material at hand. It spins out the inevitable loss as far as possible. Indeed, those substances which are absolutely essential for the preservation of the vital spark or for the continuance of the motion of such necessary organs as the heart and central nervous system are only used up when the supply from other organs has almost entirely failed. Fats and any store of glycogen are first used up, along with parts of the proteins, until when from a quarter to a half of the total body weight has been lost, the machine stops for want to motive power. If the fasting continues, readjustments are made to secure minimum demands upon the nutritive stores. As the fast progresses, the body tends to conserve its supply by lessening activity, both physical and physiological, so that the rate of loss gradually diminishes. If the fasting continues, readjustments are made to secure minimum demands upon the nutritive stores. As the fast progresses, the body tends to conserve its supplies by lessening activity, both physical and physiological, so that the rate of loss gradually diminishes. In cold-blooded animals, in which fasting is a regular physiological occurrence in the life cycle, the reserves are usually plentiful, and the demand made upon them is small, so that they may fast for long intervals without being forced to renew their stores. In warm-blooded animals, whose reserves are frequently lower and whose greater activities make greater demands upon these, the reserves are more rapidly depleted. However, it is only after all of these reserves are exhausted that the organized tissue are requisitioned as nutritive substance. The reserves last much longer if the faster rests than if he is active during the fast. Better results are achieved if if rest is observed. Work, long walks, strenuous exercise, etc., waste the body's reserves without producing any compensating benefits. Physical efforts, external cold, worry, and strong emotions increase the rate with which the body's reserves are utilized. Fever perhaps does the same, at least in most, if not all, acute states. Nelson Encyclopedia says the observations made during the fast of Suchi and others show that the body wastes less rapidly when the patient is kept warm and at rest. The fatty tissues are the first to be used up, and latter the proteids of the skeletal and intestinal muscles. The heart muscle does not diminish appreciably, and probably it derives its substance from the less essential muscles. In long continued fasts, the tissues waste more rapidly during the first few days. Later, the body uses its reserves of nourishment more economically. Previous fasting seems to train the body to a more economical use of its reserves. The enormous economy of an educated disposal of the body's forces is thus seen. A second or third fast is also almost always more comfortable than Shalom, everyone. The second and third fast is more uncomfortable than the first fast. Although in many first fasts there is no discomfort at all. On that one, family, there is no discomfort at all, but this book was written like 91 years ago, like most of it. And I think the stuff that they put in our food now, you will get withdrawal symptoms because you're not getting whatever chemicals they're putting in the food to make us crave it, you know. And another thing is your body will go into detox, you know, because you're getting rid of all the junk that they give to us. And also, if you do get like you know, hungry, take a pinch of this and put it on your tongue. It's Celtic sea salt, and put it on your tongue and let it dissolve, and then you drink water, and then that gives you your minerals, you know, so that you're absorbed. You don't even have to drink that much water, but at least the minerals are being absorbed into your body as well. And also, like, if you have problems like with anorexia or bulimia or something, you should definitely see a doctor before you even consider a fast of any kind. And for everybody else, you know, you should also, if you're able to, you know, talk to your doctor, or if you're going to do a prolonged fast. But you can work into that, you know, like over time, you know what I mean? Just don't do it right away. But okay, I'm going to get back in this book. I love you, family. Human flesh, says Dr. Page, The Natural Cure, page 73, by absorption constitutes a most appropriate diet in certain conditions of disease. The absorption and excretion of diseased tissue is under some circumstances the only work the nature can with safety undertake. And in these cases, no building up can be accomplished until a solid foundation is reached and the debris removed. And not then, unless while this good work is going on, the nutritive organs are given an opportunity to virtually renew themselves. Human flesh, by absorption, becomes the bill of fare of the sick, and in all serious acute illnesses, the only possible bill of fare. Dr. Dewey was acting assistant surgeon USA in charge of a ward in Chattanooga Field Hospital in 1864, where he says post-mortems were the rule, and that they were numerous. In discussing these post-mortem, he says there was one fact revealed in every post-mortem of tremendous significance that failed to make any impression on my mind other than to remember it. The fact that no matter how emaciated the body, even if the skeleton conditions have been reached, the brain, the heart, the lungs, accept themselves diseased, never received any loss. These soldiers, according to the theories of the time, were fed plenty of good nourishing food to keep up their strength. They wasted, as do all such patients, because the vital tissues of their bodies were feeding off the less vital or non-vital tissues. The vital tissues so fed themselves because there was no other possible way for them to feed. These studies reveal to us that there are alimentary reserve stores in the body gathered to guard against times of need. These nutritive reserves are ready for use at short notice and with little energy expenditure by the body. They are capable of supplying all essential needs for the time being and can be replenished at leisure after the work of reconstruction has been completed. If the adipose tissue and other reserves are abundantly present, one may fast 30 or 90 or more days without consuming one cell of the essential tissues of the body. With no digestive drudgery on hand, says Oswald, nature employs the long-desired leisure for general house-cleaning purposes. The accumulation of superfluous tissues are overhauled and analyzed, and available component parts are turned over to the Department of Nutrition, the refused to be thoroughly and permanently removed. Organisms capitalize the results of the joint work of the several organs, both in the form of increased capacities and valuable stored substances, and are able to use their stored capital as though to some extent independent or immediate external supply. This stored capital or biological raw material is woven into the inner fabric of organisms by the reciprocal labors of their various parts and is ready for instant utilization when need arises. The aggregate tissues of the organism may be regarded as a reservoir of nutriment capable of being called in any direction or to any point as needed. The ability of the body to nourish its vital tissues off its food reserves and its less vital tissues is of extreme importance to the sick man who is unable to digest and absorb food. Except for this ability, the acutely ill would perish of starvation. Pashutin records the case of a girl 19 years old who starved to death after running her digestive tract by drinking some sulfuric acid. He says her dead body was like a skeleton, but mammary glands remain unaffected. He also records that in cases of hibernating animals, the growth of granulation tissue in wounds continued during the deepest slumber, even when every other function seems almost to have ceased. The heart may beat as slow as one beat in 5 to 8 minutes, and the blood circulation to be slow, that cuts made in the flesh bleed very slightly, yet the cuts heal. Contrary to popular and even professional opinion, the vital tissues of the fasting organism do not begin to break down from starvation immediately upon the withdrawal of food. The fasting body does lose weight, but live weight losses are not reliable indicators of tissue changes within the organism. The largest draft upon the body's stores during a fast is made upon the fat, and in both man and animals, the rapid loss of weight during the first 1 to 4 days of a fast, particularly noticeable in the fat person, is due to the tendency of fat to fall off rapidly. Thus, it is seen that the vital tissues are nourished first off the food reserves, and when these are exhausted, off the less vital tissues. No damage will or can occur in any of the vital tissues of the body so long as its reserves are adequate to meet the nutritive needs of these tissues. This varies from a few days in very emaciated people to a few months in very fat individuals. There need to be no fear of fasting, even the most prolonged fasting under experienced and intelligent guidance. The human body may have stored within it such enormous resources of energy that it will be able to fast many days. Because there because they are ignorant of the reserves of the animal body, which are available for sustenance when for any reason it is denied food. Physicians, nurses, patients, their relatives, and friends are afraid of fasting and insist that the sick must eat to keep up their strength. Never was there a greater fallacy entertained. One important feature about fasting has been entirely overlooked by all the so-called scientific investigators of fasting. I refer to the manner in which it caused the breaking down, absorption, and elimination of use of abnormal growth, effusions, exudates, deposits, etc. The scientists have conducted all their experiments on healthy animals or healthy men and are, for this reason, in no position to know its effects in the sick body. They learned that useful fat and the less essential tissues are consumed first, and the most essential tissues of the body are hardly touched, even where death from starvation results. But never having watched the process, they cannot know anything of the rapidity with which dropsical fluid, for example, is absorbed from the cavities or tissues and utilized as food. They cannot know how tumor-like growths are often rapidly absorbed and how even large tumors are reduced in size. Resolution in pneumonia is hastened. The process taking place this way so rapidly often that it would be difficult to believe unless one should see it. Diseased tissues are broken down. Exudates, effusions, and deposits are absorbed and either used or eliminated. The body utilizes everything it can dispense with during a fast in order to preserve the integrity of the essential tissue. The useless and least essential things are sacrificed first. And that's it for chapter 4. And it's like where I'm at. It's 6:18 right now. So about 6:30 or so, I'm going to be going live again until 8 o'clock, and then I might come back at 9. But yeah, I want to do. Yes, he knows our heart, but do we know his heart? And we already read Jeremiah, so we're going to go into Ezekiel. So that'll be next, and that'll be in about I might 6:30-ish, because I gotta walk around and some, because I've been sitting here a while. But I love you all, guys, and so far this is pretty good. I mean, if you if you have a fear of fasting, this really tells you, like, it's all from because we were trained to feel that way. Okay, guys, I love you all. Shalom.